Well, hello there. Actually bringing you my sixth game is the lovable, huggable, but unfortunately untouchable Big Bear StarCraft 2. This is the first TVT I believe I have actually brought you guys, and I'm really excited for this because TVT I think is the most fun mirror match to watch, considering that it is one of the most creative matchups that is mirrored. Simply because Terran has so many options for tech patterns and so many effective counters to units. For example, if one player goes Mass Marine, the other player can go Mass Hellion, and that's a really fast and hard counter. Or, for example, one player can Banshee Rush for early pressure, while the other player could still go Mass Marines. So it's not like the other two matchups where there's really just one kind of build order, and they're both stuck together, and it's whoever can do it the best is going to be the player who wins. With Terran versus Terran, it is a little bit more innovative and it is a little bit more creative. I mean, even with this, you'll see Zerg players generally just getting their spawning pools in the exact same positions, or Protoss players generally getting their pylons. Even the supply depots, one choosing to wall off. And so I'm guessing that the blue Korean player is going to be a little bit worried about fast marine pressure, and so he wants to build this here to kind of deter any sort of fast marine play or to prevent scouting. So we'll just put a second supply depot here and kind of prevent any sort of scouting from OGS Ensnare's SCV, who is actually scouting the wrong direction. Now this is standard because when you spawn in any sort of position, you always scout close positions first. It just makes sense. And you'll see a lot of pros sometimes will actually scout down this way first, down here, just so they can swing by the Zelnaga watchtower and maybe catch to the enemy's SCV to see where that SCV is going. And you can see that generally the SCVs will hit the enemy's base at the same time, but I think that the blue Terran will actually have enough time to throw down this supply depot here and prevent any sort of scout from the red SCV, which is actually a pretty big deal because that means that OGS Ensnare is going to be playing in the dark and he will not know what build order his opponent is going in. He'll probably have to throw down a scan, which will waste 300 minerals because a scan is simply a mule that you cannot use. You can see there goes down the first mule by OGS Ensnare, followed shortly after by the mule by the blue Terran. I may just call him the Korean Terran. I don't really know, but you can see he's actually choosing to rally out his Marines for some really early Marine pressure. This is something that's really popularized by any sort of Korean player, is they'll just take every single unit they have and really use it effectively. They won't just sit back at their base and use it for defense, because the best defense is a good offense. If you are constantly putting pressure on your enemy, he cannot really do anything except defend, and you are free to expand. You can see he's actually got two SCVs here kind of rallied, one repairing the other one before he moves in. Smart choice. And then he's really just building off of this one Rax, and it looks like he is getting a reactor, followed up with a factory. And the red Terran's actually opting for a 1-Rax fast expand with a Reaper. I like the choice for the Reaper because he doesn't really know that this is coming, but the Reaper will really kind of force the blue Terran to play a little bit more defensively, or he will lose a lot of SCVs. And you can see actually choosing to push up here. He is going to be probably testing the frontier, but you can see a bunker's going to be down, and it's really, there's nothing that the blue Korean player can do except for go back to the Zelnaga watchtower here with those 3 Marines and bring these 2 SCVs back to mining. And he's bringing 2 SCVs, so he's kind of worried for some sort of all-in play, or maybe some sort of really fast, hard Marine pressure with no expo. And you can see that the Korean player is actually opting for a fast siege tank play, and the siege tank will get out just as this Reaper hits. This is a really good map for Reaper harass because there are just so many ledges that the Reaper can abuse. For example, you know, all of this ramp here, I would really suggest that that Reaper goes there as opposed to just hopping up in the front, because there will be most definitely be units, and you can see 4 Marines actually here, but the Reaper will run past those units. The Korean player does not yet see the Reaper pulling all of his SCVs. This is going to delay any sort of mining, and he will get the Reaper away. That is really good play by OGS Ensnare. While back at the base, he's still just sitting there with his command center. I'm guessing going to get an orbital and then lift it off once he feels safe. For now, all he now has the advantage of 2 mules, which is an extra 300 minerals for every mule that he does drop, which is every 50 seconds. So basically every minute, OGS Ensnare is going to be 300 minerals ahead of his opponent, which may not seem like a big deal in lower levels, but at the higher levels, that is what, 5 Marines, which is a ginormous, or it's actually 6 Marines every minute extra that he can produce, which is a huge deal when it comes to this. Also, he'll be able to get SCVs out of both bases, actually opting to lift it off and land it, but there is a huge push coming from the blue Terran player, and you can see actually smartly pulling his SCV off the Zelnaga watchtower. It's little things like that. Every single worker you can save is advantageous, and if I was him, I would just lift this command center back up, because I do not think he will be able to hold off this excellently timed attack with a siege tank and 5 Marines when all he has to defend is a single Marauder and 6 Marines. We can see he does choose to lift it off. He does choose to lift off his orbital command. Sorry about that, I had to pause it real quick. Someone had to ask me a question about how big my feet are, because they are in fact size 14. You can see he is choosing to push up here, using the medevac to spot the high ground, but with that loss of the siege tank, it really kind of deters any sort of early kind of push. And he's just going to sit here, probably try to keep some map control. The Reaper is actually smartly sitting here. He's going to be timing up any sort of expansion play. I'm kind of surprised that the Korean Terran has not decided to send any sort of marine pressure to kind of just scout out, see what the red Terran player is deciding to do. As for now, he is opting to just keep his orbital command, not really dropping any sort of mule play inside of his base. You can see he actually did lose some mining time here by not actually having them mining mineral patches and just sitting there. Opting instead, the blue Terran decides to get some sort of map control by simply just throwing a bunker outside of the red Terran's base, and this is going to be extremely hard for him to deal with, because now he will not be able to actually drop this orbital command at his natural, and he has to kind of stay walled up inside of his base. And this is really smart play by the blue Terran player, because there's really nothing that the red Terran player can do. And there it is, all 3 of these SCVs will actually go down. This bunker is going to go down, and with that, I think we may have a GG. I'm not entirely sure, but this siege tank sitting at the front is just going to cause so much havoc, so much pressure, and even then he still has a Viking to kind of force some sort of pressure. There's no medevac that can really go down, because, and see, you can see that the Viking actually will just kite this medevac while the Viking can stay under the safety of the siege tank. You can see actually pushing up, kind of sniping away at this factory, and the factory even, that's just preventing scouting so that the red Terran actually has no idea what is going on. But you can see that the Korean Terran is still not opting to actually grab his expansion, instead expanding inside of his base. I think he is fearful of some sort of drop play, and rightfully so, because Ensnare is actually dropping his units outside of the base. And you can see the Marines are pushing too far past the siege tank line. If he did push in here, he would lose a lot of those Marines to these stimped units, but he is smartly then does pull them back, losing his production facilities. I don't really know what the red Terran player can do to counteract this. The siege tank line is too strong. Once a 3rd siege tank gets up to here, I think that will be all he can do. But actually, smartly dropping, if he can pick off both of these siege tanks, he will be able to actually push us back. Trying to salvage the bunker, I do not think he'll actually get it, and no, he will not. You'll see all of these units here will die unless he picks them up, and he does. So he will get out with 4 Marines, a medevac, and a Viking, but losing both of those siege tanks is a huge deal. Instead, he is opting for 1 base Banshee play, it looks like. If you look at the production tab, you can see we are actually going Banshees with Cloak. So the Korean player really just wants to keep on the aggression, really keep the red Terran player off of the back foot, but I think that the blue Terran player is pretty far behind. Actually, no, he is not. He did lose some probes in that, or some SCVs in that engagement, but he does have his expansion just a couple of seconds early, plus he was getting those mules, and you can see the Banshee is going to be deterred pretty quickly. There's not really much that a Terran player can do with a Banshee, because there are scans that can be thrown down, but remember that every scan thrown down is 300 minerals lost. He's actually deciding to kind of test the front with some pretty weak Marines. There's no energy on this medevac. This medevac is really doing its job, and you only heal 3 life per 1 energy, so I mean, that's not too much life if the medevac has no energy. And you can see this Viking really wants to chase down this Banshee, but I think the Banshee is the same exact speed as a Viking 2.75 and 2.75, yes. So there's not much that the Viking can do if the Banshee already has a lead on him, and the Banshee will get back to the base safely. This is extremely important to keep this Banshee safe, because it can couple for any kind of later harass at the natural. As you can see, there are no missile turrets there. And the red Terran is opting to just push around. I think he's going to try to maybe do some drop play here. You can see the Korean Terran has actually not chosen to really kind of put any sort of supply depot here like he normally would. And I do not think that that is going to be a big deal, unless, of course, the Red Terran does see this and decides to drop here, he will be able to drop a lot of units in here before the Blue Terran will be able to scout this, and he'll easily be able to pick off all of these supply depots, both these engineering bays, before the Blue Terran really has any time to react. And I think that is the one fault for the Siege Tank Marine army composition, is simply that if he does decide to drop, and you can see that that is what he's going to do, he's going to take huge advantage of this. I think that this is a ginormous blunder by the Blue Terran player that he has not scouted this. He will not see it until it is too late, and you can see actually still scanning here. The one problem, like I was saying, with the Siege Tank Marine composition is that if you do take advantage of drops, he's going to have to unsiege his tanks, slowly move them up, and you can see he's actually sieging up, but this tank is going to get taken out, and that is the huge disadvantage that comes with going Siege Tank Marine any kind of composition, because really the only mobile units you have are Marines, but Marines can be easily picked off in terms of Marauder and Marine Army. But it looks like he does manage to pick this off, and OGS Ensnare instead opts to suicide both of his medevacs instead of at least trying to run them away. I do not know if I agree with that. Maybe it was just a misclick, because even the pros do misclick occasionally. You can see mine yarding all of his SCVs over here. There's another Cloak Banshee just giving him crap, and I would think he would throw down a scan, but maybe not, because this Banshee does have extremely low amounts of energy. And you can see it's just the little tiny micro tricks that players do that keeps them so far ahead. You can see that the blue Korean Terran actually knew that the missile turret was over here, so he decides to instead pick off the SCVs here. And we can see that there's 26 kills on this Banshee, going home a hero, and 1 kill on this Banshee, not so much. He is the Banshee who is known as second place. He will actually make it home alive, it looks like. If he rallies down here, I think he will still die. He really should just pull his Banshee up and do a little bit of juke. But then again, I am watching the replay and I have the everybody cam, and so he may not know that there are Vikings chasing him, but instead he's actually opting to just push up again. You can see that the Blue Terran has taken a double supply lead. At this point, you really have to kind of throw away the game to lose it. You can see that OGS Ensnare really doesn't have any sort of army compared to these two siege tanks and these massive amount of Marines. I think even if he pushed in with just these Marines, he would still destroy OGS Ensnare's army, pulling all of his SCVs. This is pretty much admittedly a GG, but since this is a tournament style of play, you don't really want to GG until you have nothing left, because you never know. And there's the GG. Apparently in Korean that is G and G. And this was in fact a good game. It is extremely hard to play against any sort of Korean, because all they do all day is work on their timings, figure out every cute little trick to save every tiny amount of minerals, and pretty much know the counter to anything and everything. So OGS Ensnare playing a good game, but the blue Korean Terran just playing a better game. And this is Big Bear StarCraft signing out.